The function h is defined by hx is equals to half x squared plus 3 for x to be member of real. So that means x can take on any value. The function g is defined by gx is equals to x plus 1 over 5x minus 1 for x a member of real, but x of course cannot be equal to 0.2, because if it is 0.2, 5 times 0.2 is going to become a 1 minus 1 is going to become 0, which is going to make function gx invalid. So that's why x cannot be equals to 0.2, but it can be any other number. So the first part of the question says find the composite function gh2. So first, before we go to gh2, let's find out what is h2. Okay, so we're going to use this function. So when x becomes a 2, and of course what does the function h does? It squares the value and halves it and then adds a 3 to the value, right? So 2, if I were to square it and then multiply by half, okay, as you can see here, then we got to add a plus 3. So 2 square is going to be 4, half of 4 should be a 2, and 2 plus 3 should work out to a 5. So that is the value of h2. But what we want is g of h2, right? So g of h2, that means when this values of x becomes h2, which is of course 5, so we want to find out what is that value. So g of h2, and of course we know that h2 is actually 5, which means we want to find what's the value of g5. So we have to use the g function, which is this. So which says x plus 1 over 5x minus 1, and of course when x becomes a 5, so it's a 5 plus 1 over 5 times 5 minus 1. 5 plus 1, the numerator is going to become 6 and the denominator is going to become 24. 5 times 5 is 25, less 1 is 24, and 6 and 24, both of them are divisible by 6, so we can simplify this into a fraction of 1/4. Okay, 1 6 and 4 6 are there in 24. So there we have gh2. Let's look at the part 2. Find the value of x for which gx is equals to 1.4. This is your function gx. Okay, so what should be the value of x if the function, okay, maps on to 1.4? So given gx is equals to 1.4, so this is my gx, right? So x plus 1 over 5x minus 1. If this is equals to 1.4, so we just need to solve this equation and look for the value of x. So first step, we are going to cross multiply the 5x minus 1. So x plus 1 would be equal to 1.4 times the 5x minus 1, which is the denominator on the left. It's going to become a multiple on the right. Then let's expand this bracket. So x plus 1 would be equals to 1.4 times 5, that's going to become a 7. Okay, so that would be a 7x. 1.4 times 1 is going to become 1.4. Now we have got 7x and this side we have 1x. So we can throw the plus 1x over to this side. So 7x minus 1x is going to become 6x, that's on one side. And then we have got a plus 1. Let's throw the minus 1.4 over to this side. It's going to become plus 1.4. So we're going to end up getting 7x minus x is equals to 1 plus 1.4, right? 1 plus the 1.4. So 7x minus x is going to be 6x, which is equals to 1.4 plus a 1, that's of course 2.4. So we want to find what's the value of x, isn't it? So x value should be equals to, okay, 2.4 divided by 6. So we should become 2 over 5. So therefore x is equals to 2 over 5. So if you can find this value, so you will be getting 1 more marks. Let's now look at part B. The function f is defined by function x is equal to x plus a over 2x plus b, okay, for all real values of x except for when x is equals to k. So give an expression for k and explain why this value of x has to be excluded from the domain of f. Now for this expression, okay, to become undefined, what should happen to the denominator? The denominator would have to become 0. If the denominator becomes a 0, then the function becomes undefined, right? You can't divide anything by 0. So for fx is equals to x plus a over 2x plus b. So we cannot afford to have the denominator, okay, cannot be equal to 0, because if it is equal to 0, then the function x becomes undefined. So if 2x plus b equal to 0, so now all we need to do is to look for the value of b x plus b if you throw over the other side. So we know that 2x cannot be equal to minus b, and x therefore, let's divide both sides by a 2. So x cannot be equals to negative b over 2. So the question is given x cannot be equal to k, some constant, right? So what is the value of k? Just by looking at this and comparing, so from that we can see that k must be negative b over 2. So if this was a negative b over 2, then of course if you're going to put a x as negative b over 2, the 2 and 2 will cancel to give you a negative b plus b will give you 0. So that is when the function becomes undefined. So the question is asking, explain why this value of x has to be excluded from the domain if k is equals to minus b over 2, okay, should be excluded because f of minus b over 2 cannot be defined. Okay, so of course, as I mentioned, if f of minus b over 2, if we substitute that, it's going to make the denominator become 0, and thus it cannot be defined. Let's look at the b part 2. The function f is such that function of x is equals to inverse function of x for all the values of x in the domain of f. Determine the possible values of a and of b. So how do we do that? Okay, let's first find what is the inverse function of this. Let y is equals to x plus a over 2x plus b. In order to find f inverse x, okay, we need to make x the subject of this particular expression. So first step, I'm going to cross multiply the y with a 2x plus b is equals to x plus a. Let us now expand this bracket. So you're going to have 2x times y, that's a 2xy, b times y becoming a by, okay, and of course the right hand side still remains as x plus a. So now the next step would be to bring all the x's to the same side and throw all the rest to the other side. So 2xy, and here of course we have a positive x. If I bring it to the left to become negative x, okay, and of course what is left on the right side is a, and plus by, if we throw over to the other side, it's going to become a minus by. So now these two terms, the common factor is a x. So let me just factorize out a x, and of course if I take out the x, so I'm going to have 2y, and from this since I have already taken out a x, that's going to be a 1. So x times 2y minus 1 should be equal to a minus by. That's what we have. So now if I were to isolate x, so it's going to become a minus by over 2y minus 1. This should be the x in terms of y. But what we need now is f inverse of x. So therefore f inverse of x, so when we want to write the f inverse, we're going to change all the values of y back to x, and we're going to write that. So it would be a minus bx over 2, instead of a y we put a x, 2x minus 1. So this is the value of f inverse x. Now let us compare your function of x, which is x plus a over 2x plus b, and f inverse x, okay, a minus bx over 2x minus 1. Of course, if these two functions are equal, okay, the numerators must be equal and the denominators must be equal as well, right? So 2x plus b should be equal to 2x minus 1. So what should be the value of b then? If 2x plus b equal to 2x minus 1, of course the value of b should become negative 1. If the value of b becomes a negative 1, and if we were to replace the b with a negative 1, what happens? Your f inverse x now becomes a minus, of course since the b value is a negative 1, negative is going to become positive, then we have a x. So your f inverse x becomes x plus a over 2x minus 1. Can you see it is exactly the same as your function x? So x plus a here, this is fx and this is f inverse x, and the denominator is 2x plus b, of course the 2x minus 1, since the value of b is equal to negative 1, right? So, and another one of the important information is that for if you want to have the inverse function, right? So for f inverse x to exist, okay, it is important that it must be a one-to-one function. Function x must be a one-to-one function. This must be a one-to-one function. Then only f inverse x can exist. So we know that fx is equals to x plus a over 2x minus 1. Now let's go to the denominator. Okay, if I were to factorize out a 2, so I'm going to have 2 bracket x minus half, right? So because 2 times x is 2x, 2 times half is going to give you a 1. So this is exactly the same as this, right? Now can x plus a be equal to x minus half, or what happens if x plus a is equals to x minus half? If x plus a, if it is equal to x minus half, then we would be able to cancel, right? So x plus a, we would be able to cancel with x minus half, right? And if we were to do that, if we were to cancel it, so the function x would, numerator would just have a 1 and the denominator would just have a 2. So function x would simply become half. Now what is the meaning of fx is equal to half? Fx is equal to half means, if you were to draw it graphically, so is basically y equal to half, which is a horizontal line, right? So you know that a horizontal line, okay, in a graph is actually a many to one function, right? So if y equal to a constant, of course it is a many to one function regardless of what value of x we put in, okay, it will always be equal to half. So it is a many to one function, it will not be a one to one function. So when does this happen? It happens if x plus a is equal to x minus half. Therefore what we should conclude, x plus a cannot be equal to x minus half, right? So therefore x plus a must not be equal to x minus half if you don't want it to be a one-to-one function. So if we can remove the x from both sides, so we know that a cannot be equal to negative half. So determine the possible values of a and of b. We have already found the values of b as minus 1. A can be any other value, but a cannot be equal to negative half. So a can be a member of real number and it is able to take in any values of real number, except a cannot be equal to negative half, because if it becomes a negative half, if you look here, your function x will become x minus half over x minus half here, and it will cancel, and the function x will become, okay, half, which is actually a many to one function. If it is a many to one function, it cannot be a one to one function. If it cannot be a one to one function, it cannot have f inverse existence. Okay, therefore this is the values of a and of b. The function f is defined as this. Find the expression for f inverse of negative 4. All that we need to do is, just now we have earlier worked out what is f inverse x. So it is simply a minus bx over 2x minus 1. So f inverse of negative 4, that means the value of x has become negative 4. So all that we need to do is to change the value of x into a negative 4. So it becomes a minus b times negative 4, whereas in the denominator 2 times x, which is minus 4 minus 1. So if you look at the numerator, it will become a plus 4b. Denominator is going to give you minus 8 and minus 1, right? So the numerator would be a plus 4b and the denominator is going to become negative 9. Therefore the f inverse of negative 4 should be a plus 4b over 9. So that should be the answer.